You're listening to short inspirations from Ralph. The huge party in heaven. You know, there was a time when the Pharisees and religious scholars got stuck into Jesus about associating with the riffraff, with the sinners, with people that they would have nothing to do with. He would eat meals with them. He'd treat them like old friends. So their grumbles to Jesus triggered 3 stories, and they were all about something that was lost. But the stories were also directed at the crowds of people who were listening. And the first one was aimed at shepherds and people who worked outdoors. It was about a lost sheep and about the celebration that goes on when one sheep out of 99 is found. The second is about a woman who had lost a coin in her house and goes to great lengths to try and find it. And when she finds it, she gets all her friends and neighbours and has a great celebration. The third story is the famous parable of the prodigal son, about a rich man who loses his son. So it's all about relationships. And then his son comes back and the great celebration again after he returns. But then in the middle of these stories, Jesus does something remarkable. He talks about what's going on in heaven when a lost person repents and is found again. It's the greatest lost and found discourse in the Bible. But it also demonstrates the incredible Father heart of God. His love for his people is immense. Apollo 13 in April 1970 planned a landing on the moon, but things went seriously wrong when an oxygen tank ruptured. And we have that famous saying, "Houston, we have a problem." They swung around behind the moon and out of full control in seeming hopelessness. They had to rely on mission control to survive. They reenacted this whole episode, dramatized it in a movie, and it starred Tom Hanks. It centers on these 3 lives in this little spacecraft, in trouble and far from home. And at mission control, they're not sure what really to do, and there's a little exchange between 2 of them. One of them is really afraid because the future's uncertain. He says, "I'm afraid this is going to be the greatest catastrophe in the history of NASA." Then another character, Ed Harris, a real Rock of Gibraltar type, full of optimism, says, "On the contrary, with all due respect, I believe this is going to be our finest hour." And then they all work like crazy, and then there's 4 minutes of absolute anxiety while the spaceship tries to do the re-entry. And it's out of all contact for what seems an eternity. Life or death is on the line. The whole world, it seems, is holding its breath, wondering, are they going to make it home? Will they be safe? And finally, out of the silence and the static, we hear this voice. This is Apollo 13. We made it. We're home. And the little community at Mission Control explodes. People are jumping up and down, high fives everywhere. Engineers are dancing and embracing each other, laughing and crying. And in this movie you see the rock-like character Ed Harris, usually unemotional, hardly able to contain himself because everything he's lived for, the years of training, have all focused in on this moment. The successful salvation of 3 lost astronauts. This indeed was his finest hour. And I believe that's a great illustration of what happens in heaven when one sinner repents and is found. They come home. Jesus says, "In the same way I tell you, there is rejoicing in the presence of the angels of God over one sinner who repents." There's a party going on in heaven, in other words. There's jumping and high-fiving and great celebration. And that word joy in the Greek means gladness. It means exceeding joy. It means great joy, delight at this happening. Perhaps as you're listening to this podcast, you are, in a sense, far from home. In a sense, you're lost and you need help. There's a Cliff Richard Christmas carol called Saviour's Day, and the chorus goes, "He is calling you on the Saviour's Day." May you call to him, may you find him. I would encourage you to listen to my recent podcast titled, Why Should I Become a Christian? Have a listen to that. May you be one soul who creates a party in heaven. God bless you.